Today we are going to talk about the American Revolution from 1776 to 1783. The countries involved were the colonies of America, British colonies of America, England, and France. The overall cause of events which preceded the American Revolution was the French and Indian War, which caused extreme financial hardship for England, thus causing heavy and at times unfair taxes on the American colonies, which heavily strained the relationship between England and the American colonies. Also, rise of republicanism and John Locke's theories caused widespread social belief that all citizens had a right to a voice in government, and when their rights are abused, they have the right to rebel. This belief made the American Revolution valid and necessary in the minds of the American colonists. As a first group, we have the acts and taxes placed on American colonies which caused strained relations between American colonies and England. The Writs of Assistance, the Sugar Act, the Quartering Act, the Stamp Act, the Townshend Acts, and the Tea Act. The Tea Act and the Sugar Act both put strains on merchants in the American colonies. The Quartering Act allowed British soldiers to stay in American colonists' houses when they needed. Group 2, uprisings and minor instances of rebellion which fueled the fire of division between the American colonies and Britain. The Boston Tea Party and the sinking of the HMS Gaspee, as well as the Boston Massacre, were major instances of rebellion. Group 3, formal unions which were the voice for revolution. The formation of the Continental Congress, the Continental Association, and the formations of the Sons of Liberty, and the Declaration of Rights and Grievances, as well as the First Continental Congress and the Intolerable Acts, were formal unions which were the voice for revolution. The overall cause of the actual American Revolutionary War was the Battle of Lexington and Concord, also known as the Shot Heard Around the World. Because of the shot heard around the world, violence between the American colonies and England was initiated, thus causing the American Revolution to begin. Next, we shall talk about the major events of the American Revolution. Group 1, major battles of the American Revolution. The capture of Fort Ticonderoga was a place of strategic importance that gave the Continental Army a foundation. The Battle of Bunker Hill, which was an overall British victory, also caused huge losses on British lines. This caused a morale increase of Continental Army and showed that the colonists have a chance to win the war. The Battle of Trenton and the Battle of Princeton marked two huge consecutive victories over British after a series of losses for the Continental Army. The victory at Saratoga, New York, marked a turning point in American Revolution. This victory also convinced the French to join the American cause and ally with the American colonists. Kings Mountain, South Carolina, was a battle that lasted only 65 minutes. The Americans defeated 1/3 of General Cornwallis's army, and this also marked a huge victory and morale boost for the Americans. Next, we shall talk about the propaganda and nonviolent morale boost for the American cause. Thomas Paine's Common Sense, which was published on January 1st, 1776, was a best-selling propaganda piece for the American Revolutionary cause and convinced many Americans to unify against the British and claim independence. The Declaration of Independence, adopted on July 4th, 1776, officiates the American claim of independence. The creation of the American flag acted as a symbol which unified the American colonists. The adoption of the Articles of Confederation, which was the first form of a constitution for the American colonies, unified American colonies under a single constitution and government, and this marked the beginning of actual American nation.
I just said our constitution.
Group 3, major military-related events. The arrival of von Steuben turned the Continental Army from a large, unorganized, and undisciplined militia into a serious fighting force. The arrival of Lafayette, which occurred before the arrival of von Steuben, was something that helped train the American Colonist Army, also known as the Continental Army, and it signifies the international support for the American cause, as well as helps convince the French to ally with the American colonists. The French alliance and the arrival of French troops on July 11, 1780, marked the beginning of concrete and military support from French for the Americans. Benedict Arnold's plans to cede West Point to the British were uncovered and foiled. If Arnold had succeeded, the American Revolution would very likely have ended with a British victory. This was foiled by the secret Culper Ring, which was an unknown spy ring that helped to ensure American success during the war. This spy ring was so secretive that it was not uncovered till the 1930s. The Culper Ring was headed by George Washington. Lastly, Group 4, events which marked the end of the American Revolution. General Cornwallis was surrounded on land and sea by American and French at his surrender at Yorktown, Virginia on October 19, 1781, which was the last major battle of the American Revolution, which officiated an American victory of the war. The British signed the Articles of Peace and the Treaty of Paris, which marked the official end of the American Revolutionary War with a victory for the Americans and signifies the recognition of the American colonies as an independent nation by England. The U.S. Constitution was ratified on September 17, 1787, and this marked the beginning of the United States of America under its Republican Democratic government as it is known today. Key people of the American Revolution. First, we have George Washington, who was the general of the American Army, also known as the Continental Army. He led the Americans to victory and to independence. Next, we also have King George III, who was the King of England at the time of the war, and he would not let the American colonists have their freedom. Next, we have General Cornwallis, who was the final general for the English army, who lost.
And this was Jacob's part of the presentation.